Hello, bonjour, namaste, ni hao, and ohio everybody, what is going on? It is Galeriot here, and welcome back to the YouTube channel once again for another Danmachi and Wistoria video. And today we are here to basically do a combined video because I want to talk about the link between the two worlds. A lot of people across various social platforms, YouTube, Twitter, Reddit, and so on and so forth, have been talking about the potential likelihood of Wistoria being connected to the Danmachi world in some way, shape, or form. A lot of people are suggesting it's a prequel, a lot of people are suggesting it's a sequel. Well, today I'm going to try and hash out as can effectively what's the similarities between the worlds and whether or not they're connected in any way, shape, or form. Now, of course, I will also be doing a comparison of the two series in a separate video. That might take a few more days because I might actually read through the manga for Wistoria, at least from start to where season 1 ended, to get a better idea of how the manga was done, if there were any differences, any similarities, any additional scenes in the anime that helped it, of course, right? And then I'll make that comparison video. But in this video, I want to focus on the setting, the story, and whether or not the characters might be linked in some way, shape, or form. Now, of course, if you guys want to enjoy this video, remember to leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel for more content, Danmachi or Wistoria related. We might start doing a little bit more Wistoria content depending on, the situation, if there's a gacha, if there's more seasons to come. We'll keep doing that sort of stuff. I might cover the manga in some way, shape, or form in the future as well. But of course, right now I'm focused on obviously just Danmachi content, and Wistoria is of course a direct comparison to Danmachi because of it being written by the same author, right? So hence why there's more Wistoria content on the channel as of the last 3 days, basically. But yeah, just to let you guys know, there will still be Danmachi content regularly. This is just something that we're doing because of Danmachi's author and Vistoria's author being the one and the same person, right? And of course, let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think? Is there a potential for the worlds being, the same, sequel, prequel? What do you guys think? Now, immediately I will say, I don't think the Wistoria world is connected to Danmachi at all. In terms of the timeline with Danmachi, at least prequel and present timeline, hell no. Hell to the no. I don't think it's even close. And to be honest, even in terms of the future timeline, it being a potential sequel, hell to the no. And the reason why is because of a lot of discrepancies between the Danmachi characters that are present. So of course we know that this world, this universe that Amori has created in Wistoria features a lot of Danmachi characters, specifically a lot of Loki family members and a couple of others as well. We've seen Gareth, right? We saw Gareth at the very beginning. We saw Lafia and Philvis at the midpoint, and then at the end we obviously saw Finn, right? We also got a reference to Riveria as well because of her last name being used for one of the Magia Wanders, of course, right? Specifically Eleanor Leosov. That is Riveria's last name. Basically, Leosov is Riveria's last name as well. So we have some references to some of the Danmachi cast members. But the reason why I can immediately tell you that the world is not even close to being connected is you look at the ages of every single one of the characters. Gareth is based in a different timeline, it seems like, and he's no longer a part of the world, right? That's one. Finn is much, much, much older. That's point number 2. Point number 3 is Lafia and Philvis are a thing when Finn is much, much older. I won't talk about Lafia and Philvis that much because it's a lot of spoilers for Sword Art Oratoria 12, which I know a lot of anime onlys have probably not seen at all or read at all. I highly recommend people go and watch the Danmachi stories because the thing is, I don't think anybody would be even questioning whether or not Wistoria is connected to Danmachi if the anime actually showed us the side stories for Danmachi. All of the Danmachi anniversary stories are canonical. Most of them, I should say, not all of them. First year and fourth year aren't, but second year, third year, fifth year, sixth year are all canonical stories and are actually interlinked to the major overall story of Danmachi. We already know the past of Danmachi. That is something that we've known for a very, very long time. We know about Argonaut, we know about the Age of Heroes, and of course the likes of the Knights of Fianna. We know about Albert and of course Arya and the Spirits. Then we also know about what happened 7 years ago with the Stray Record. A lot of people think that Wistoria is a prequel to Danmachi. It's not. It's just not possible for it to be a prequel because, for one, well, first and foremost, the technology is completely different to what we've seen in the past in the Age of Heroes, but more so than that, more so than any of that, we know that the monsters were a lot more rampant than this. Over the last 3,000 years, the monsters have been causing havoc to the world of Danmachi. It's not exactly the same here. We know that the sky is the bigger problem in Wistoria, and I'll come on to that in a little bit, in a way, because I feel like there is something there potentially. But with Danmachi, the monsters have been a presence for the last 3,000 years, and they've been a heavy presence over the last 3,000 years. There is very little segregation compared to Wistoria. Wistoria has a lot of discrimination and segregation, it seems like, right, with the dwarves and the elves. It's not the case in Danmachi's world, surprisingly, and I think that comes down to, again, the whole fear and threat of monsters being obviously a greater threat to the humans and just generally the mortal beings, that they have to kind of ignore all sort of discrimination and, you know, differences to focus on, you know, defeating these monsters, of course, right? There is still some level of discrimination in Danmachi as well, but it's not as evident or as predominant as we saw in Wistoria, especially in the middle episodes, right? But more importantly as well, again, I come back to this point, there is just no feasible way of the cast that we have in Wistoria, like Lafia, Fulvis and everything, existing at the same time. It just isn't possible. Lafia is effectively the same age as Belle. I think she's actually 2-3 years older. The Lafia we saw is completely different to the one we have in Danmachi's main series. Same with Fulvis as well. And then of course Finn is completely different as well. It's just not probable. And the thing is, when the gods came to Earth, it was never under the notion of invaders, and that is where there is a potential likelihood that the invaders that we are hearing about from, you know, Vistoria's perspective could be classified as gods, and that could potentially mean that Vistoria's world is like sort of an alternate universe to the Danmachi world, which I think is the biggest likelihood. I think it is not impossible that that might be the case. We know that the dungeon exists as well, but it does seem like the dungeon, while it is impactful in some way, shape, or form, it's not as significant as the threat that's coming in from the sky. Now, this could be a more case of more evil gods, potentially, right? Evil, higher beings that are coming down from the sky, right? And that's what they're trying to deal with more so. So this is assuming if gods were evil, right, and monsters were less of an issue. But still, again, it kind of leans into the fact that the worlds aren't identical whatsoever. Now, a lot of people are also saying that this could be a sequel to Danmachi. The existence of some characters and the fact that some characters don't know one another and stuff like that makes me believe that that's not the case either. Again, a lot of people are suggesting this could be 500 years down the line, 1,000 years down the line. Again, if reincarnation is a thing, and of course we know Danmachi has done this before, it's not impossible or improbable, in all honesty. I don't think it's impossible or improbable, but I do think that there is a unlikelihood of that still, nonetheless, in all honesty, of it being set in the future of Danmachi. I think it would be quite interesting. I think it would be quite surprising to me, to be honest, that it would be set in the present. Amori would have to do a lot of explaining for that, which I don't think he will, to be honest. So I don't think that's the case. To be honest, I just think that him reusing the characters of Danmachi in Wistoria is a case of potential laziness, to be honest. Number two, being a little bit more of a sort of like, what's the word? A bit of a callback, or a sort of like a, you know, like hint towards like, oh, look at Danmachi kind of thing, you know, by that as well. And potentially we might have it as vice versa as well. Danmachi is a big franchise, right? So of course, if, you know, you tell Danmachi fans that, oh, you know, there's Danmachi characters in Wistoria, they'll be like, oh, really? I mean, you immediately, to be fair, Amori sensei writing it would have been a bit of a thing in itself. But I remember when people told me about, you know, certain Danmachi characters being in the story, they spoiled me on that one, to be fair. But they told me that Danmachi characters were in it, like Lafia and stuff, and I was like, wait, really? Okay, that's pretty interesting. I didn't expect that. and it got me interested, it got me intrigued, and to learn if it is an alternate universe or something like that. And so for me, that was pretty interesting. So I think it is those two things, and then the third thing, I think he might be wanting to set this up as an alternate world, an alternate universe. What if the monsters were lesser of a threat? What if the gods were a bigger threat? What if the gods didn't like what they were seeing from, you know, these powerhouses below? Because obviously, while we do know that the characters in Danmachi, especially once they hit level 7, level 8, level 9 and higher, they get very, very strong, but still they're never really, like, the gods never really treat them as like insane beings compared to who they were in, you know, heaven and stuff, right? So what if the characters in Wistoria are way too strong, and that's causing them to be scared, and potentially hence why they're evil in this situation, right? Again, it's an interesting theory to have, of course, right? And again, this is why I wanted to make this video as well, and why I was interested in talking about this, because a lot of people, you know, were setting it up to be like prequel, sequel, present timeline. I don't think it's connected in that way. What I do think is it's an alternate universe, and I do think that there's potential likelihoods of that being the case, where, you know, these worlds, or this world, is effectively the opposite of what the Danmachi world is. Monsters are still bad, of course, there's no two ways about it, but I do think if effectively what this situation is that the monsters are less of a threat, a lesser threat. The gods might be a little bit more of a threat, potentially, right? And so we'll have to wait and see on that front, of course, right, as to whether or not it's the case, of course, right? The other side of the thing, the coin is, and the reason why I also believe, you know, obviously I know some people are saying like Will is Belle's father and stuff. No, we know Belle's father and we know Belle's mother. They were part of the Zeus and Hera familias, and that was like 7 years ago in Danmachi terms, or 15 years ago in Danmachi terms. There was no shot Wistoria and Danmachi are 15 years apart. The worlds are just too different, and it would have been weird going from a world that was, you know, effectively the way it was 1,000 years ago, changes for Wistoria, and then comes back to being the same way. It would have to go through some drastic changes for it to happen. I don't think that this is a Fire Force Soul World situation, is the best way to put it. A lot of people may know what that reference is, a lot of people might not, but if you know, you know. I don't think it's that sort of situation. I do think that this is like a, you could say, another Eden Zero fairy tale sort of vibe. I just think that this is more of like a situation of like, you know, an alternate universe. That's just how it is. I think that's just simply put the situation with Wistoria and Danmachi. I saw somebody posting a thing to me in the Discord, and you know, people are like, oh, it might be Belle's dad, you know, the Wistoria being a prequel of Danmachi seems to be looking very nice, and I'm like, no it ain't, and no it ain't, no shot it ain't. But again, I think I'll blame this more on the Danmachi side, to be honest, because we know a lot of the history of Danmachi. We know about, you know, Argonaut, we know about Astrea Record. These are very integral storylines that tell us a lot more about the history of the Danmachi world that haven't been adapted into anime. And I can't blame people for not knowing this, because we would have known about it if you know, SB Creative decided, you know what, let's do the side stories for once, because they're clearly important, but they don't want to. And I don't know why. I'm really hoping that the 10th anniversary anime project is one of those side stories, but we'll have to just wait and see. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you think that the Danmachi world is linked to the Wistoria world in some way, shape, or form? I'm curious to see what you guys have to say down below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye.